What's up, guys? Lemoy here, bringing you some weekend motivation. Today we're talking about success, and not just success in general, but extraordinary success. This week I've been reading the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and in it he talks about people that stand out in society, people that are different from everyone else, people that have achieved extraordinary results or extraordinary success in their life or have extraordinary abilities. And he's going through and he's studying these different people and seeing what makes them unique, what took them to their levels of success. And there's a lot of different theories that he brings up in the book of how to become successful. And the one I want to focus on today is called the 10,000 hour rule. And we touched on it briefly last week, but today I really want to dive into it because it's something that a lot of people will really kind of take for granted and don't realize is what's driving these people that they see, achieving these huge amounts of success, and they don't understand what's behind that success. So the 10,000 hour rule, it basically says that to become a master of anything, to become great at anything, you have to put in at least 10,000 hours into that activity. And that goes for anything. So he looked at studies from like hockey players, musicians, people that had mastered any skill, any craft, and what he found was that over the years, normally starting from when they were a child, they had put in at least 10,000 hours of work. And people that were pretty good put in like 8,000 hours of work. People that were okay put in about 6,000 hours, and it kind of went down from there. But what he found was that people who were successful always put in at least 10,000 hours of work, and that people who put in at least 10,000 hours of work were always successful. There was a direct correlation. So when he was doing the study, there was nobody that put in 10,000 hours of work that wasn't successful. So there was no situation where someone worked harder than everyone else and didn't be more successful than everyone else. So it's a good formula to follow for success. So the real question is how to do it. Because the reality of it is 10,000 hours is a lot of time. To put in that much work is a lot of work. And for a lot of you watching this video, maybe you're 20 years old, maybe you're 30 years old, maybe you're somewhere in that range, and for you, you're thinking, oh man, 10,000 hours of work, that's going to be 8 to 10 years. It'll be when I'm 30 or when I'm 40 or when I'm 50 by the time I've achieved this. And that's really the key, is that if you really want something, you have to be willing to work for it. And if you feel like it's going to take too long and you feel like it's not worth it, that's okay. Very, very few people achieve that level of mastery. But if you feel like that's something that you really want for yourself, you have to have the mentality of, I'm going to work for this. For a lot of people, it'll really come out to be somewhat of an obsession. People from the outside looking in are going to say, he's obsessed or she's obsessed with doing that. For example, one of the people he talked about was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, everyone knows Bill Gates, he's a genius. He's really smart, he's good at math, good at programming, created Microsoft, one of the richest men in the world right now, might be the richest. But what people don't see or don't hear of Bill Gates' story is the amount of work that he put into programming and software development before he was Bill Gates, right? So from when he was in 8th grade, when computers were brand new and they were super slow and really tedious to program on, he was programming. From about 8th grade to his senior year in high school, right before he went to college, he was programming around 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he had a quote in the book, and he was saying something like, there was rarely a week that me and my friends went where we didn't program for at least 30 hours, right? He basically is programming as a full-time job almost. And that's when he's a kid. He's going to school. He has other things he probably has to do. As children, we have household responsibilities. But he's still spending all this time programming. He's going to the lab. He's walking to the university, just wherever he has the opportunity to use a computer, because at this time, people didn't have computers in their home. And he's just putting in the work. And it wasn't that he was thinking, oh, I need to put in my 10,000 hours, because most people that, achieve great results, they aren't thinking that way. And you probably shouldn't either. He was just obsessed with this programming. He was obsessed with learning. He was obsessed with getting better. He was obsessed with creating great programs. He was obsessed with mastering his craft. Another good example that I like from the book was the Beatles. And everyone knows the Beatles. They're great, probably one of the greatest musician groups of all times, depending on who you talk to. And the Beatles, they got great the same way everyone else got great. Sure, they were good at playing music. Sure, they could sing and write songs, But there's a lot of people that are good at playing music, and there's a lot of people that can sing, and a lot of people that can write songs. What really set them apart was the amount of time and effort that they put into their music. And what they would do is they would play at strip clubs. And I don't remember the exact explanation for why. Something to do with not having normal clubs around. That normal clubs didn't exist back in the day. They were just strip clubs. And so the owner of the club had an idea that they would play live music, and that way they could keep traffic going all day instead of having dead times during the day. So by some stroke of luck, the Beatles got invited to play at the strip club. So they were playing all day long. They were playing 8-hour gigs, 12-hour gigs, 10-hour gigs, and just all day long, just playing and playing and playing. And so this did a couple things for them. One, it made them really, really good at playing because they just had that repetition over and over and over and over. And eventually people would come and they would stay just to hear the Beatles play. And the club would close at 12 and people would stay till 2 just because they wanted to keep listening to the music. So it made them really good at playing. The second thing is that it made them really good at playing with each other, because as a band, you kind of have to work together, and that's part of the performance. That's part of what makes you great. If a musician is great individually, he has to be great as a group, as a collective, and so it helped them with that as well, because they were just together playing all the time, all day, every single day. And what else it made them great at was coming up with different songs, because when they're playing all day, eventually you're going to reach the end of your library of songs. And so they had to keep coming up with new music. They had to keep writing new music. They had to get creative. They had to make sure that they were keeping people entertained so they could retain their gig, they could retain their job playing at this club. Right? And so by the time they even came to the United States and started their career here, they had been together for a long time already. They had played, I think the number was around 12,000 gigs. Maybe it was 1,200. It was 1,200. They had played 1,200 gigs before they even started their career, and most bands don't play 1,200 gigs in their entire career, and they had played 1,200 before they even got famous, right? So you've got to understand that whatever it is that you're good at in life, whatever it is that you want to be great at, whether you're a musician, whether you're a speaker, whether you're an athlete, whatever it is, if there's some specific skill associated with that, in order to become great, you just have to pound it. It's repetition. That's all it is. And people try to make success a lot more complicated than it really is, and it's really not that complicated. And this isn't a total formula for success, but a lot of what goes into it is just a lot of hard work, a lot of repetition, a lot of practice, maybe a little bit of luck and fortunate circumstances, and a little bit of talent and skill as well. All these people, they were talented, they were smart in their respective field. You could even call them geniuses. But there were plenty of other people with that same level of talent and same level of genius that just didn't make it because they didn't put in the work.